Good evening. I'm reading to you lying down tonight. A couple of days ago, I had an emergency operation to remove my gallbladder, so I've got some abdominal discomfort. This is my address. It is completely surreal to me that I've been asked to address WDI, that I should be here stating that the species Homo sapiens are a dimorphic reproducing mammal consisting of male and female types that must combine genetic material to reproduce. It's so incomprehensible to me that I should be saying this anywhere, let alone to a women's rights organisation that I knew nothing of until recently. The absurdity of this literally challenges my hope that I live in a sane world that has a confident grip on reality. In our current dystopia, we're told everything is racist, everything is transphobic, and in seeking to make sense of the rise of this style of unhinged from reality thought being promulgated on the left, I began following the American philosopher and social commentator James Lindsay. This is a quote from his 2022 lecture called The Negation of the Real, which sums up the way I've come to view critical social justice and how its activists operate. Quote, "If you want to impose a totalitarian system, you have a problem on your hands, reality. The real is in your way and will eventually veto your project. Far sooner, people who can perceive reality will step in and prevent you from taking society over a cliff. Therefore, the only way to install a totalitarian system is to negate the real in the minds of those over whom you would rule. This is accomplished by creating an interpretive frame that deliberately causes people to misunderstand reality, sometimes called a second reality or pseudo-reality or even a hyper-reality, which loses all contact with reality through its images and constructions." Unquote. In the remainder of this talk, I'll discuss mostly my own personal situation in dealing with the incursion, dissonance, and demands of living with transgender ideology, which has brought me to the place of agreeing with James Lindsay that the ultimate agenda of critical social justice and trans ideology is to install a totalitarian system of government committed to the eternal struggle of trying to install a postmodernist Marxist-type utopian society. I was kindly invited to give this presentation to WDI by a member of your group after she heard me talk at Kelly J. Keen's Let Women Speak rally in Sydney, Australia on March the 11th, 2023. In that speech, I outlined how I'd learned what transgender ideology is and how it expects to position itself in our societies. What I'm witnessing happening in my country and the rest of the West, starting for me in 2017, has caused me such alarm and anxiety that I feel compelled to try to speak out and find out what other people think. I am a textile artist and use my skills to make interesting things out of cloth. In that capacity, in 2017, I had gotten into trouble with an American social justice activist who denounced me as a racist because I refused to stop using the word kimono to describe a woman's loose robe. I not only refused to stop using it, but I stridently denied my using it was evidence of cultural appropriation. The kimono kerfuffle was my first step into the bizarro world of critical social justice activism, where I discovered a parallel universe populated by perpetually aggrieved and outraged people who sincerely believe that all the sufferings and oppressions of societies are intentionally caused by privileged people who engineer the situation that some people are denied rights and opportunities to keep one group more powerful than the other. I went on to discover that far from being oppressed and powerless, the cohort of critical social justice warriors that I had locked horns with in my textile artist world were highly successful in getting me censored, deplatformed, and cancelled all over social media. There was obviously some sort of black ban list going on, as it became commonplace for me to find I was blocked in advance of trying to follow various Instagram accounts. 6 years ago, when I endured this first wave of cancellation, my Instagram account had less than 300 followers. And the two social justice activists, Emily Ito and Arja Barber, who were the people working hardest to completely obliterate my presence on social media, had combined followings of more than 250,000. There is a pretty obvious power differential in there, regardless that the women believe that their racial identities as African American and American Japanese cause them to live lives with less equality to me because I have white skin. The reality is they are both far more educated, wealthy, and influential than I am or ever could be, but they felt their self-described social justice advocacy was justified in intending to crush a woman who had annoyed them by disagreeing with their opinions. I believe their actions against me were quite simply bullying and persecution, and were fueled by racial prejudice towards white people and had nothing to do with social justice. The consequences for me were having a barrage of nasty, personally denigrating emails and having my micro-internet enterprise lose significant income. These women and other so-called anti-racists keep monitoring what I do so that in 2021, an art gallery I was going to exhibit work in received written requests that I should not be represented by them due to my reputation as a racist. In December 2022, I was expelled from an arts organisation, the Surface Design Association, after I complained about being removed from an international Zoom meeting discussing cultural appropriation, in which Emily Ito was an invited speaker. Their justification in expelling me was described as incompatible values. Please note that Emily Ito is not any sort of an artist, nor has any education in art theory, history, sociology, or critique. The Surface Design Association asked her to expound her opinions from the perspective of an anti-racist social justice activist about what she thought textile artists should be allowed to make. Weeks after the live interactive Zoom presentation, when I was able to track down and see a recording of it, it was no surprise to discover that Ito believes that cultural appropriation is rampant and done almost exclusively by white privileged racists. Up until speaking at Let Women Speak, I had been blocked from about 100 Instagram accounts, banned from social media posting to a magazine I had a paid subscription to. I was removed from Patreon, banned from prominent Australian feminist Bree Lee's Substack, banned from TikTok, shadow banned on Instagram for 10 months. Various postings were arbitrarily removed, and I was not allowed to start a business account with them due to what they described as repeated violations of community guidelines. I had my merchant shop closed on Pinterest. A whole board called Gender Critical with 500 links was removed from Pinterest. And of course, it virtually goes without saying that I have been banned from Twitter. It is chilling that privately owned social media companies feel entitled to censor users who publish opinions that don't do or say anything illegal. None of the videos or journalistic items I collected on my Pinterest board have been banned or removed elsewhere and can still be searched out. Everything is freely available on the internet and didn't contain anything illegal. My online store didn't get cancelled because of any problem with my products. It was removed because Pinterest did not like my political views. 2 days after I attended the Canberra Let Women Speak rally, my Instagram and Facebook platforms were hacked, and I have been denied access to them ever since. Meta does not respond to requests for help, so after a couple of weeks, I just deleted the apps from my devices and don't use them anymore. Not being able to use these platforms makes it extremely difficult to establish or develop a public profile as an artist. Being denied means to show my art production and talk about my practice on social media has almost the same effect as being sacked from a job. Despite the various cancellings, censorings, and shadow bannings I'd gotten on Instagram over 6 years, I'd still managed to accumulate 965 followers until my account was hijacked. Having this number of followers was a significant way helping promote my exhibitions and selling my art and handmade products in my Etsy shop. Having a social media profile with a good number of followers is an important factor in getting accepted to show in galleries or to sell at curated artisan markets, because the managers, organisers and curators could see I not only had established a reputation for quality and consistent production, but had an audience that their event or venue could be directly advertised to. At present, and going into the foreseeable future, I contend it will be impossible for anybody seeking to make a living as an artist to make a success of it if they are shut out of access to social media. A visual artist who cannot show anybody what they make cannot build credibility. Having no profile on social media means no attention, no potential to construct a narrative about your art practice, and you might as well not exist. In her 2022 Reith lecture, the writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie warned, "This new social censor demands consensus while being willfully blind to its own tyranny. I think it portends the death of curiosity, the death of learning, and the death of creativity." Being able to gatekeep who has access to social media is not only an ideological control, being banished from it can be existential for some types of users. Creators and artisans like myself, who are essentially self-employed, depend on social media platforms to be able to promote our work and maintain a public history about our art production. So why is a 64-year-old grandmother being told what she can and can't say in public? As a citizen of Australia, I'm in the most law-abiding demographic segment of the population who are least likely to cause public nuisance or commit offences. Now it seems my opinions and words have become so dangerous I must be silenced. It is with the intention of silencing me that some ideologues I know and others who are faceless, most of whom live half a world away, are working on a daily basis, generating algorithms to moderate and expunge what I'm allowed to say in the internet public square. Or they are making blacklists to be disseminated, or writing materials condemning those of us who don't identify as woke, and slurring us as racists, white supremacists, transphobes, homophobes, Nazis, and bigoted speakers of hate speech. Why do self-appointed social justice warriors feel the need to surveil and control others if the words we express our opinions in aren't anything that breaks the laws of our countries? The cancelling and deplatforming that increasing numbers of people are being subjected to are obviously ideological. We are being prevented from examining, questioning, and criticising things that are happening in our communities. I've experienced how cults work. As a young woman, I lived for 4 years in one of New Zealand's most notorious cult communities, Centrepoint Community. Centrepoint ran on principles that came directly from the same postmodernist philosophers, sexologists, and academics that are the foundation of what's now called queer theory. Queer theory teaches that transgressive behaviours are required to dissolve boundaries as the way to make a better world. Some of the boundaries they intend to break down are what defines heteronormative relationships and the conventional family. The way this worked at Centrepoint resulted in undermining the normal instincts of women to avoid behaviours that were harmful to them and their children. In real life, I saw how child safeguarding was dismantled bit by bit, so that within a few years, the sexual exploitation of women and children had become normalised. Queer theory is a Trojan horse ideology pretending to be social justice that is a spearhead for malevolent forces that intend to exploit the vulnerability of women and children. If trans ideologues achieve their definition of a social justice utopia by first silencing everybody that doesn't support the belief that men can become women, by threatening people that they will lose their jobs, or by cancelling and deplatforming dissenting voices, when this society is achieved by force, do they imagine it will function with goodwill and trust? Part of what makes democratic societies flourish is that all citizens have equal freedom to speak and discuss how they want their communities to interact. It is through free discourse we identify what are majority and minority views and try to find a way all community members can have their positions respected. Through open discourse, it is communally decided the best way to instigate rules, laws, and codes of conduct to bring about what has been argued through that process of debate to be the fairest outcomes for everybody. So I'm curious to know how it's going to work when a large portion of society is actively prevented to speak freely and punished if they do so. When a significant portion of people have to have their questioning or dissent silenced, it doesn't sound like a social justice utopia to me. It seems more like North Korea, Afghanistan, Mao's China, or Stalin's Russia. Societies that have to force their citizens to shut up about issues they don't want discussed are on the slippery slope to authoritarianism. I ask, where are the people who support transgender ideology, who understand the importance of debate? I'm at a loss to name a single trans rights activist who welcomes debate and engages in serious and good faith argument. WPATH, the international organisation representing trans rights and setting medical standards, does not welcome debate. If their beliefs are solidly anchored in reality and human rights, as they claim, why are they not welcoming debate and confidently outlining what their principles are? After 6 years of researching queer theory and critical social justice activism, I've arrived at the view that the people who embrace the ideology are literally dangerous to child safeguarding, women's rights, free speech, and democracy. Critical social justice ideology does not stand up to deep philosophical and sociological critical evaluation. It is anti-science and rejects reality. I believe it is essentially dogma that provides an intellectual construct enabling aggrieved personalities to act out fears and frustrations against limitations that are almost always entirely imagined. In closing, I want to reiterate this chant from Let Women Speak. There is no such thing as a trans child. Non-binary is not a real thing. Trans women are men. Men do not have vaginas, and women do not have penises. Women will never stop fighting for our rights. And thank you very much. I'm concluding.